I finally had some time to watch episode 4 of season 3 of The Circle, and I stand by a lot of what I said in the last Circle video that we were robbed of Michelle for sure. I still think Michelle would have been much better TV than a lot of these other castmates, especially better TV than Fetch 1 and Fetch 2, Ava and Chanel. This will probably be a short video because I don't feel like episode 4 was really that impactful altogether. The one of the main things that started off the show was Calvin and Daniel and Roxana bonding after those three were not invited to the party the night before. And I think this led to the even more bonding that happened later in the episode between Daniel and Roxana. Daniel going to her as like a motherly figure, which I think helped both of them out a lot because Daniel isn't really able to find himself in this game so far. I feel like he's kind of just in the middle, which isn't the worst thing in usual games. To be in the middle of a game is usually a good thing. So maybe that's a good spot for Daniel. Roxana had a good episode. We'll get to a little bit more of that in a while. Another main point I saw in this episode was that Kay's bullshit meter is still a little wonky. She might be starting to fix it, but that's still what stands out to me most about Kay is how she said in the first episode how she has this great bullshit meter, but so far she's not batting very high when it comes to actually guessing the right things in this game. But her social game continues to be on point, as we will also talk about here in a few. They played a game, Honest Review, where they get to like leave a Yelp review on each player. We'll pick one player and then leave that review. Obviously, it was mostly negative reviews, people trying to paint targets. That was the main point of the game, was to try and paint targets on each other's backs. There was a lot of people are trying to take down Calvin because they see his game being very big. He has a great social game, and that's been coming through, but he also kind of puts himself out there as a leader. And in these games, being the leader can cost you a lot. That you're in that leader position, you're probably going to be a big target sooner rather than later. And that is what happened here. Daniel, who's playing Ashley, was one of the first people to comment about Calvin and how he dominates conversations. Calvin got a second bad review after that. So the target on his back did work, though, because his score dropped. Kay tried to blow up Daniel's under the radar game. That was one of the other notes I had from this game. The one thing I will say about this season so far, although I find the cast to be a fairly bad combination of either boring or annoying, I do feel like this is a really strategic season so far compared to usual on the Circle, both UK and US. I feel like the last two seasons of the US really weren't all that strategic. People tried to be strategic in season 2, but twists kind of fuck things up at times. And yeah, but this time, although they're all still a little dim, they have some good strategy. I think Kay trying to blow up an under the radar player is smart. So Kay doing that to Daniel, I don't know if it quite landed yet, but maybe that's why I think Kay's bullshit meter is starting to maybe fix itself, because she's starting to see Daniel's under the radar could be a threat down the line. Now, Fetch 1 and Fetch 2, Ava and Chanel, are playing Michelle, and in this episode, they started to go a little overboard with their conversation with Kay, where Kay was starting to get suspicious because Michelle's like digging for info and acting like if she was younger, she would want to date one of the guys, even though Michelle is supposed to be married. So that was not great gameplay from Ava and Chanel, which is not surprising. They showed in the first round when they got eliminated that their heads aren't really that much in the game. So yeah, that started to put some red flags to people in this episode that maybe they chose the wrong Michelle. Well, the ratings for this episode was Michelle, who was being played by Ava and Chanel, in 7th place. In 5th place was Calvin and Ashley being played by Matthew. I think I made a mistake earlier and said Ashley was being played by Daniel, but Ashley being played by Matthew. Still learning those names. Fourth place was Daniel. Third place was Nick, and then Rukhsana and Kay are the influencers. Kay, still an influencer, but Rukhsana, her game starting to come through, which I'm glad to see. I really like her. She's probably, honestly, the three people that weren't invited to the party, Calvin, Rukhsana, and Daniel, are so far probably my favorites of the bunch. So they had a good talk as influencers, Kay and Rukhsana. They let each other in on a lot of their own personal games and their own thoughts on the game. I think Rukhsana and Kay could make a good little duo for now. I think Kay is probably going to be a little more cutthroat than Rukhsana, but for now, I think that's a good little duo. In the end, Michelle will be the one to get the boot. Kay has to do this face to face. She's going to see that Ava and Chanel are still in the game, that they were the fake Michelle, and that her bullshit meter needs some work because she was one of the main people that were like, this is the real Michelle. And then here we are now. I wonder if the real Michelle will get to have a message now that fake Michelle is out. I hope so. We'll see in the next 4 episodes coming later this week. For now, I think the season's okay. It's nothing to write home about, but I think that's the US version of the US Netflix version of The Circle in general is kind of just okay to me, but I'm going to keep trying to watch. So I will try and come back with a review for episode 5 on Thursday morning, barring I have the time.